Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Real Talk for Real Teens, hosted by Kim Creighton, or as she's known by the people who know her best, Mama C. The show where we uniquely combine the information teens need with the entertainment teens want.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to another evening of Real Talk for Real Teens. This is your host, as always, Kim Creighton. And tonight I have Deja Howell as our musical artist, and her music will be featured tonight. And I'm very excited about this guest that I saw speak at TEDx Atlanta a few weeks ago. His name is Charles Orgbon, and I want him to introduce himself and his organization and what he's doing to you, and we'll get the conversation started right away.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am 17 years old, a junior at Milkers High School in Tequila, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta. Started an environmental organization when I was 12 in response to noticing my school's littering problem. I wanted to help educate my community about environmental issues. What began as just me being interested in littering led into me learning a lot more about some environmental problems that our world faces. And from there, I wanted to more specifically help young people navigate these issues that they will need to understand and to be able to solve and address these problems in our world. So out of that grew Greening Forward, which is helping young people with mentorship, grants, skill-building resources, our youth summit, solve and tackle these environmental issues by really addressing the gaps that young people may have in the skills that they need to create positive community change around environmental issues.
Wow, you just said a mouthful. That seems like a lot. For a 17-year-old or 12-year-old to handle. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I find so often, and I love having young people on here who are doing great things and are doing well in school and are doing well in the community, and I'm saying and not or, because I hear so often, oh, I don't have time for that, oh, that's too hard, or blah, 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 blah. And I just love to bring on examples of young people who are standing up and saying, hey, this is my world, this is where I'll be living, and I need to have an impact on that.
Absolutely. I think that you see a lot of adults at the table of making really critical decisions, whether it's at the school board level, the city council level, the federal level, and we forget that young people live in these communities too, and these are issues that affect young people. Why not have youth voice at those kinds of levels in government and in decision-making, even in business and philanthropy or corporations? I think a vision that I have is to create conversations and create a movement that really is stepping forward in thinking about how we want to engage young people in our world. You know, T.A. Barron says this really nice about what he hopes for young people is if he had 3 wishes, he could give them more hugs, give them more time outside, and help them find their power to change the world. Those are the 3 things. And as an adult, he says that, you know, the first 2 is like everyone wants to do that. The world wants to do that. But the last one makes people scratch their heads and wonder, you know, why do we need to do that? But really, if we're going to solve, you know, today's growing problems, and I can rattle off all of those kind of problems, but they're all around us, and you know what they are. They're in your community. We have more young people now than ever before. To be honest, we need to wait. We cannot wait to give them the tools and resources they need to create change around these issues. For me, my passion is around the environment and helping young people create change around environmental issues. But truly, I think it's even deeper than that for across the spectrum. If we're looking at youth engagement, is whatever issue makes sense and excites a given person. I think young people really can tap into that energy to create positive, substantive change in their communities. But again, they're going to need youth-adult partnerships.
I'm so happy you keep using the word youth engagement, because that is a youth development term. That's a term that adults use. It's a field that I'm in, and it's seeing young people as an asset and rather than a deficit. So building on those assets rather than deficits. And it's funny that not funny, but are you talking about federal level? I've even gone beyond that. I would love to prepare a delegation of young people to be ambassadors to go to. Have you heard of the World Economic Forum that happens every January in Davos, Switzerland?
No, a little bit, but not enough to talk about it.
It's this World Economic Forum. It's all the world leaders. It's princes. It's presidents. It's everything, and they're talking about the state of the world, the economy, the environment, and there are no young people there. Absolutely no young people there. And I would love to, as I said, get prep a group of young people to go there and annually be a part of that conversation. There are no young people on the cabinet, at the cabinet level or even the federal government level in the United States. Other countries do have certain parts, but we don't. And it's about. I'm sorry, go ahead. What it is about is when you say that people don't understand why, is because when young people are invested in their communities, they care about their communities. If a young person is invested in their community, they won't throw litter outside of the car as they're driving by. They won't. If they see that litter, they will pick it up. If they see that elderly person who's having a challenge in their home, they will go help that person instead of that elderly person being afraid of young people. That's the why why you need to engage young people in their communities.
A couple of things. I am really impressed by the presidential youth, the campaign for a presidential youth council, which has gotten bipartisan support for creating a youth council that would advise the president on issues relating to young people. I applaud President Barack Obama for appointing creating a new office in the White House of Public Engagement, for having a liaison for the millennial generation, that 18 to 30 age group, which is a lot of things are addressing, just that age group alone. But there's one person now, at least, who's responsible for that age group. But I think that for a lot of people, that's a radical idea to have a presidential youth council, or to have like what Congressman Rob Woodall does here in Georgia for a student editorial board, and giving young people this equal playing field to journalists, or having the news being, when you look on the news is coming from a young person, or to have companies give their pieces of their entire philanthropy portfolio, like State Farm does with the Youth Advisory Board, to young people and says, here's $5 million. And essentially, you guys got to figure out a way to disperse this around communities that we work in. That's what State Farm does. Why can we not replicate that kind of model where you have young people doing things that are traditionally done by adults? And I think when you have that, and then like you said, these issues where maybe adults are right now in their situation of complaining about what's going on with today's generation, for part of that problem is, we don't see people like us in those places of leadership or examples. There's a lot of problems with that, and I think it requires a mindset change and that's the kind of attention we're trying to build right now.
And you're exactly right, because I want to tell you this is nothing new. It was happening when I was a young person. We wanted to know why we didn't have a voice. In the 60s, it was, the youth culture wanted to know why they didn't have a voice. So it's been going on. I think now with you being able to identify corporations and entities of the federal government that are doing it, there is a cultural change. It's a shift with leadership and being just like with a lot of social issues that were taboo in the past, that are now coming up, and people are saying, you know what, that doesn't bother me so much as it used to, or it bothered my parents. So yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And so it's slowly happening, and you guys are in a prime position where I was not, my generation was not, to take advantage of and push the agenda, because you have your opportunities, you have the door open. Now it's time to just slam through the door, and a lot of people are not going to get it, and that's what I understand about my business. A lot of people aren't going to get it. It's not for everybody, but it's about identifying those opportunities, those people in authority who are open and receptive, and just educating them on it, and then pushing them a little farther than where they might have thought. Because a lot of times it's like, we have a teen council, or we have this, that, and the other, and they have absolutely no authority. They're just there because sometimes a grant says they have to be there. That's where when those opportunities come, about changing the mindset and having identifying the value. Because just like people always say, there's no money in working with kids. It's about what you value. These young people have $200 gym shoes on. That's what they value. But there are also people out there who work with people like you, or organizations like you, and young people like you who value that and will put their dollars and effort and energy into that. Let's stop for a moment, because I want to come back to this, and we're going to have our first break, and we're going to listen to Deja. So we'll be right back. All right, guys, let's get ready for Deja Mae Howell. This is a young person who grew up in Hollywood. Her father was actually the stunt guy, double for Kevin Costner. So she is used to being in the entertainment world. Her first song that we're going to play is Empty Rooms.
you could blend it. Your first sight is her, talking and smiling, just pretending. Waiting, you walk as fast as you can, watching her. We're gonna spot the rooms are empty, empty, empty rooms. You wanna be near to her, but you're too afraid. How what she do? Something shifts now. She's always smiling at you, at you. The rooms aren't empty. No, the rooms are empty, empty of you. You both walk in the same direction, till the weight of an empty room. The rooms are empty, empty, empty rooms.
Welcome back to Real Talk for Real Teens, hosted by Kim Creighton. To talk live on the air, call 347-539-5226.
Welcome back, guys. I have Charles from Greening Forward on the line. Before we get back onto that, Charles, I really want to talk about your organization. Tell me where the name comes from, and how did you move from just the littering campaign that you thought it was to this major effort that this major initiative that you're doing?
Well, we think Greening Forward is just giving a verb to what we're trying to do, and then we're also trying to move ideas forward. So we tried to put it all together. It just came out of a brainstorming session.
Okay.
Really caught on from there. Well, that is really big. That's a really big question there. How did we go from 12 years old? At that time, it was basically a website. Greening Forward was actually just a website, and then the idea just sort of kept there of like I wanted to make more of a difference, and so it made a lot of sense for me to get some help, figure out how we could structure this organization, create a board of directors, and it was all for this vision of we need actually more student-driven campaigns at the local level. And so Greening Forward became this way of supporting student-driven campaigns in communities. I saw a void in the community, in the environmental field that's still there. Of okay, let's educate young people about environmental issues. I think we're doing a good job there. We're on the right track there. But I think closely related to that is not only let's become aware of the issues. In the age of access, that's not a problem. We're aware of the issues. But let's figure out how we can empower young people to find what they really already have to do something about these issues. So young people exciting change to clean up their stream in their community, the tools and resources to create a community garden so there's more accessibility for wholesome foods locally, but also can be used as a learning tool on a school campus. Or students finding that, one visible problem I see is, buses, or I'm just speaking as a young person, the buses or the cars, the air pollution on my school campus, what can I do about that? So young people, see these issues, they're aware that they're there, but let's put together some resources that help young people actually take action against them. And so one of those obstacles can be funding. So this past year we gave away $35,000 in funding that went directly to youth-driven campaigns, mostly around water quality issues. But our young people are also coming up with solutions to air quality, to plastics-free initiatives, like why do we create things that are meant to last only a few minutes but are basically in our landfills forever. So our young people are addressing a lot of different environmental issues, and we have to be flexible enough to be able to understand that language at time and even build parallels between, what is the section of the 303D of the Clean Water Act, trying to say versus, how do I engage my elected officials in these kind of campaigns, or how do I get my teachers and administrators on board, or how do I, talk to my friends about this, and that kind of, peer-to-peer, young people working with young people, really creates an unparalleled kind of way of thinking about how do we do environmental leadership and to some degree environmental education.
One of the things that I'm picking up from you is your level of not only commitment, that goes without saying, you've been doing this for 5 years, you started an organization or whatever, but your level of self-directed learning, I'm thinking, is what I want to call it. The organizations, the entities, the federal arms, whatever that's doing whatever is going on. You're quoting out of the Environmental Protection Act, the water, what's part of it, and you're deciphering and you're getting with your peers and figuring out what does that mean. You are truly exhibiting what everything I do is about helping young people get ready for what we call real world. Either college and or career, but bottom line, you can't be in school forever. That's life. So, and the four things that employers and schools and everybody are trying to go through, they call them the 4 C's, and that's collaboration, which I see you and your team are doing. Just the fact when you were saying you brainstormed the name, that's collaboration. The creativity. You're figuring out what needs to be done, how to get it done. The communication, you're being able to articulate and talk to young people about the issues and educating them on that. And because young people are so disenfranchised, and that's just the way how our society is. Young people have no voice, and so you're giving them the platform or the language to gain a voice, as well as the critical thinking part. What is it that is the issue? What do I want? What do I want to focus my efforts on and attention to? And I am bringing that up because so often young people are doing things, and no one is enumerating the things they're doing. They're not saying, "Hey, Charles," "Hey, Mary," these are the things you're doing well. We also often hear about the things young people are doing that are not will, that are not in their best interest. And so I wanted to take a moment and give you that, and your organization, because I know you couldn't do this by yourself, and you could not be the only person who's exhibiting these four things. And the fact that you're sharing this stuff with your peers just shows the law of just multiplication. And I would like to see, what am I trying to say? I would like to see it in action. I really would like to come out and see what you guys are doing and to bring it to other places. Because to have a 17-year-old to say they've given out $35,000, that's some people's income. And so you've had to be able to be smart about how to give out that money and where to give it out and all those kind of things. Oh, I'm done.
Okay. Well, I think first you mentioned a lot of different things, but first, where did I learn this? I think looking back 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't know when you were sending an email what does CC mean, carbon copy, or BCC, or just really basic things like that. Maybe not even know how to address a letter, but those are things that you eventually have to learn, and as problems, get thrown at you, you have to ask someone to step down from their position, or you have to bring someone onto a position, or you have to move things around or create policies to make things more effective. These are the kind of things that I'm learning that I also would have never had to learn if I wasn't in these shoes to do this. But there's also the grant writing piece. And at first, I was a terrible grant writer. And I got feedback, and I started reading books. And I started seeking out other knowledge, and other people that I knew how to fundraise. And so now most of our grants are now our grants or most of our most of our income is grants, because I guess that's just what I seem to do best at. But we're all actually trying to move a little bit more into that earned income, and perhaps some consulting work that we do, and then some more fundraising, which make up smaller pieces of our little pie. But my team also is very similar in that some of the early people of Creating Forward really, didn't know how to balance budgets and do this kind of stuff, to be honest. But those are things that we learned.
And I'm glad you're saying that, and that's why I brought it up, because so often people, and not just young people, but people think, oh, my God, this is so overwhelming. How can I, I can't do this. I can't learn this. And I'm happy you're giving examples of it was a learning process. You did not wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to tackle all of this. You took steps. And so let's break, and then we'll come back, and we're going to talk more about that.
And,
all right, guys, we're about to listen to Deja Mae's Sun Babies.
Well, he began to realize, she had an entire life without him. An entire life he chose to ignore. They're all sun babies, creatures of the sun. There were parts of her he needed, parts he didn't let himself know. He was looking for something that he couldn't let her be. They're all sun babies, creatures She's not the girl whose picture sits within. She began to realize that she wished she was. He began to realize he began. He was not the person he said he was. He was something different, something more. They're all sun babies, creatures of the sun. There were parts of her he wanted, parts he didn't let himself know. He was aware of how lonely life without her would be. They're all sun babies, creatures of the sun. We are all sun babies, creatures of the sun.
Follow us on Facebook at Real Talk for Real Teens and on Twitter at RTFRT Radio. Welcome back to Real Talk for Real Teens, hosted by Kim Creighton. To talk live on the air, call 347-539-5226.
Okay, so we were talking about these, the fact that you are honest enough to say, hey, this is not something I knew. This is something I had to learn. How is school and being a CEO? How are you handling school and being a CEO of an organization?
So, I go to school and I spend pretty much the rest of my day, doing homework and working on Green Board. And that's usually my typical day. It does require a lot of commitment, and I think that ultimately it's a really easy question, or really easy question, for me to answer. When people ask, how do you find the time? Stephen Covey, and this is, pulling back on some of the people that I read on leadership and how to solve some of these things that I had to learn how to solve. If you take a jar and you first put in the big rocks and then your middle-sized rocks and your pebbles and then your sand, everything seems to fit. But if you put the sand in first, so maybe those little things that aren't as important, those teeny little things that you got to do, and then you try to fit in the big rocks, it doesn't work. And simply put, you have those big priorities in your life, and you have to understand to say no sometimes, and everything else seems to fall in place when those big rocks are there first. I hope that makes sense, but it's a very interesting thing to try because it really does work in real life and hypothetically.
Have you? So tell me some of the things you've read or that you're reading.
Well, I'm
you mentioned
actually reading
Stephen Covey. What was that? Which one was that?
7 Habits of Highly
Effective. Yeah. I have young people who I work with definitely read 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens.
I'm actually reading a really interesting book right now. Why are all the black kids sitting together in the cafeteria?
Classic, yes.
About race development, not just across blacks, but whites, and I'm towards the end, so now I'm at Asian Americans, and which is an interesting term in itself because Asia is like 4.4 billion people, but so they're very different people, but we use one term to describe them all.
Yeah,
not very accurate. but that and Hispanics, that's where I am right now. But I'm also reading this book called Dream of a Nation that is, it's very, all the proceeds go back to charity, but it's very progressive thought leaders around poverty, education, the environment. It's actually where I pulled from T.A. Barron's quote that I said earlier. He was in there. But it makes us think about what our priorities are. It talks about how the United States was spent 42% of all military purchases globally was attributed to U.S. military. 42% of the entire world's military expenditures happens right here in the United States of America for our interest, and how how what we spend on the environment, pretty much all domestic affairs, really are small in comparison to what we spend on our military budget. So that was one of the most interesting pieces of that, and just trying to figure out how do we solve some of those really big gaps that we have in just poverty and healthcare and in the environment and so forth.
Well, I want to ask you a question, and I don't want this to add to your day. I mean, I don't want to add to any more rocks. Maybe this is just some sand. But I would really love for you, from a young person's point of view, to put together could you put together a reading list that I can make available to young people of books that you find that are inspirational and thought-provoking for you and not coming from me?
I would love to do that. That would be very interesting, actually.
Yes, because you have such a breadth of knowledge, and you're pulling from all kinds of things. And again, I'd rather it come from a young person than for me to put together a list of books, because some of the things you're reading I've read. And I think they're very beneficial to other people. So thank you for that. I would really appreciate that, and I can give that out as a something just to get right. You know, if you read just put your alarm on 5 minutes right before you go to bed. That's 5 minutes of reading, of enlightening yourselves.
I love learning new things, and I think that the world is much more interesting and more cool when you read things, which is really interesting because I think I've been able to breeze through school without having to read every single thing, but these are things that I'm actually really interested in. So I love reading for fun, but I actually hate reading for school. It's pretty paradoxical.
Well, no, it's not, because it's about, again, it's about where your passion lies. We will do anything for those things that we're passionate and interested about. But if it's something that my grades in school, that's when my mom never got on me about my grades, because I was a straight C student unless I was interested in that class, and then I would excel. Oh, my God, I did above and beyond. But most times I was absolutely bored in school. And so I did just enough so they would shut up talking to me, and I could get, and get out of the class, And it wasn't until I got, and my mom could see it in my report cards. She said, "Oh, you must like this class," because I would have A's. I would have, I'd be doing projects at home. Anything else, it's like, okay, Kim, you can do better than, yeah, but I'm not going to, so let me just.
And that's another radical thought right there, is maybe I am in the same circle with other, young leaders, of course. And this is the other thing I didn't talk about was, I guess you wanted to, you said show me, more young people like you or something like that, or show me young people who are doing this kind of thing. And I get to work with those people all across the world, and there's a lot of them. Young people that sit on the national boards of youth service organizations like Youth Service America or Do Something, or YMCA or the American Red Cross has a youth council, Keep America Beautiful has a youth council. You're talking about thousands of young people who are sort of doing the same kind of level of work in their communities. So, and then being recognized by it. So I just think, like, there are some grants and award, or there are some scholarships that I'm hoping to apply for next year, and it's like that one, I know like 80% of the people that also got it too, because it's like we're all in the same circle.
Exactly.
So that is really awesome for me to be able to go to a conference and know someone who knows someone, or seen that person's name somewhere before. So, that's a good thing in that it's a very powerful network, and we all want to support and help one another. I think that there's a level of interest and collaboration and partnership that I don't see as much in very traditional organizations. There.
And you don't see it in schools either. That's something what you're speaking of. How often are your peers, and I'm not talking about, the people that people hang out with, but are your peers in class really coming together, collaborating in classes, making sure everybody's on the same page? If you don't understand it, hey, let me give you a hand and make sure you get it. And I mean, that's one of the 4 C's, that whole collaboration thing. We do better when we do it together.
That's true. Have you ever, if you haven't seen these videos by Kid President, you should totally look up Kid President on YouTube. But it's,
I'm doing that right now.
Actually, it was Kid President was one of the closing videos at TEDx Atlanta.
Yes, this little guy. Yes.
He has more videos, and they're awesome.
Yes.
One of them is, adults can make a difference and kids can make a difference. We can make a bigger difference together is how he closes one of them. And it's so powerful, but it's so true. But we can do so much more when we're doing this together. And I really want to lead a collaborative organization, a collaborative movement. Most of our social media is talking about other people, what other people are doing. Most of our money we don't keep. We give it away to empower young people. What we do as an organization at Green Forward is meaningless if the people that we work with aren't feeling a substantive, like it's making a substantive difference for them. So we are working really to support, this entire movement of young change makers in 15 communities with 2,000 young people, but it's really about the work that they're doing that really makes all of us very special. So I really challenge organizations to think about what it means to be collaborative in merging, in going after joint funding, in sharing staff people, in sharing resources, in being housed in the same spaces. Like, that is beyond just, I'll share your competition and you'll share my competition. Kind of, that's not collaboration. That might be some partnership to some degree.
We'll share the copying machine.
Yes.
Let's take a break, and I want to come back to that because in our last few minutes together, I really want to I'm loving this conversation. So let me take a break. Let me tear ourselves away from here and play another one that Deja Mae. I told you I butcher people's names all the time. Deja Mae. We'll be right back, guys. All right. Our next song by Deja Mae is Stay the Night.
We met in the sunshine beneath red awnings. He sat at the bar pretending to read as nice and slow. Why don't you stay the night? Why don't you just stay? Why don't you stay the night and save our goodbye for another day. He said he was leaving, he said he can't stay. I went to a window pretending to pray. Packed in the evening, not saying a thing. I went to the bedroom pretending to sleep. I begged and I pleaded. Why don't you stay the night? Why don't you just stay? Why don't you stay the night and save our goodbye for another day? We said our goodbyes and he left without pain. I got on a train pretending to leave, whispered these things. Why don't you stay the night? Why don't you just stay? Why don't you stay the night and save your goodbye for another day? We met on a cold night. I told him I'd change. He kissed me while saying he missed my pretend. Reached out his hand. Why don't you stay the night? Why don't you just stay? Why don't you stay the night and save your goodbye for another day?
New or unknown music artists, we need you for the show. If you'd like your own mini concert, please send a request for information to realtalkforrealteens@gmail.com. Welcome back to Real Talk for Real Teens, hosted by Kim Creighton. To talk live on the air, call 347-539-5226.
All right, welcome back. I have Charles from Greening Forward on the air, and I know you have somewhere to be exactly at 9, so I'm keeping that in mind, Charles, so we can finish up so you're not rushing. So in the last few, let's say 4 minutes that you have, just tell me what is it, how would you like to end the show? I guess that's, what do you like your peers to know?
Well, I have a little surprise for you. I actually don't have anywhere to go now.
Oh, okay.
So that's not an issue.
Okay.
So is your question still the same?
Yeah, because then we have a little bit more time. We have about we still have about maybe 6 minutes. So just pontificate.
Okay. The closing message, I think the call to action is, we, teach young people math, science, language arts. Why can't we give young people the tools to create change in their communities, whatever that might be for them, and recognizing their voice and knowing that when we, I'm a young person too, but when adults step back and let young people lead in a meaningful way, that really transformational things can occur. And we talked earlier, but I want to mention this resource, Roger Hart's Ladder of Youth Participation. Helps you really analyze, is youth voice in a given scenario at its lowest rung tokenism or manipulation, because some adults can use and say that they have, youth engagement and youth voice in their programs, and upon closer inspection, that's not really authentic, genuine youth leadership. To the highest rungs, which are debatable between entirely youth-driven or youth-adult partnerships where young people and adults are equal at the table. So those are some things to think about.
It's funny that you mentioned that because that's totally what I want for this show. I do not want to be doing this show. I should be, it's real talk for real teens. I should be sitting back and monitoring and answering questions and making sure there are developmental issues, I'm addressing those issues. But I would love to bring somebody on who can do this show because it should be. It should be a youth show.
And there are, I think there are people that would be interested in doing that. I think that if you, Kim, this is an awesome opportunity, but if you could come up with what you might need from someone, I would love to, shoot this out to my networks. And
that would be great.
You could gather some interest there and perhaps having a host, a co-host, or someone that you could...
I want to train. I want to start with a co-host because when I'm talking to adults, I know because I've been in the field for so long what benefits young people. But again, having someone like you, someone with that voice who can ask those questions and not just come from me.
I think that would be really interesting to explore, and I would love to be able to help you there. And there are blog shows that are out there. One of our youth council members is a part of, I think it's Voice America talk radio show online, too, with her own series, too. I think that there's a lot of interest in there.
Good. So we will get together because that is something. A lot of things in what I do, it's about passing the baton. But you can't pass the baton if we haven't prepared you to pass the baton. Just like you've mentioned how you had to learn. Adults around you provided you a safe place so you can make decisions, make mistakes, fall, get back up. But you were in a safe place, and they didn't let you go your hand until you could walk. You don't expect a baby to all of a sudden go from scooching on the ground to walking. They have to practice. So I kind of interrupted you there, but go ahead. I'm so excited.
No worries.
I'm very passionate about working with young people.
We have a lot to be excited for because this energy really isn't truly all tapped into yet of really what we can do. And when we were talking earlier about, not liking school but liking other things that excite us, and because that's really what the world needs is people who are excited about doing something.
Exactly.
But maybe the deeper question is, and this is also what I was trying to build a relationship with, is I work with some people who are in education reform. There's a lot of students, when we talk about problems, I guess that's one of the most visible ones for students. So there's a really big growing movement for education reform too. When you look at goals of what young people care about, surprisingly, actually, the environment and animals are number one. But then there's also education reform. And so maybe a deeper question of how do we look at civics, how do we look at service learning, how do we look at youth voice in the classroom. One of the biggest challenges is trying to implement that in our public school system. But I think, though, that could be very well one of the very first places to start when we think about creating a populace that's ready to solve these issues.
Exactly, and it's so funny that because of all the testing, civics is no longer a part of many schools' curriculum. Service learning is not there. That's why I'm starting a service learning project this summer. School reform is struggling because the school system is based on an antiquated time when you prepare people to have a job for 30 years. That's not how the world works. We're dealing with technologies in an environment that no one even could fathom back then, and we need to adjust to that. So I wanted to, because we're about to close, and I just wanted to thank you for being uniquely you, for being happy to be uniquely you, and to be such and I say this with a little trepidation, because I hate to put young people on the spot or make them think they have to hold up the mantle of the world or be a mirror for all their peers. But what you do is an example of what young people are capable of and what a lot of young people are doing and no one's watching. And so I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you, Kim, for being one of our allies. Because like we say throughout, is there's this unknown arena out there of what really young people can do, and there's perhaps too much. There's definitely too much of what young people are doing wrong right now. And
exactly.
It's really created, another book, another interesting book that I'll share with you later, but that takes what I guess we're seeing is a very dispositional assessment of young people versus a very situational assessment of young people. And situational meaning, we live in an environment where there is no opportunity to do anything greater sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes also with and I'll close with this, it goes also with when I correct a young person, I'm correcting behavior. I'm not saying that that young person is not worthy. Yes, I'm going to correct your behavior, but I'm also going to love you and show you a better way to do it. So with that, Charles, I'm going to say thank you very much. It has been a pleasure having you on the show. I will contact you with looking forward to getting that book list and also to get that information out to you so you can help me get a host for this show. That would be wonderful.
Well,
and if there's anything that you and your organization are doing, please let me know so I can see where I can help and help you guys out.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
All right. Have a wonderful evening, and thanks again for coming on the show.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. All right, guys. That was a great conversation, and we're going to end it with Deja Mae's last song, Surfboard Balcony, and then I'll see you next week.
A surfboard hangs off your balcony, got blue eyes with a touch of green. You say you don't trust nobody for a dog that just lays and lays and lays. I wish I could be that cool. I wish I could not care too. But I do. Propane dripping off your fingertips. You got blood slipping out your ruby lips. Your face makes it hard to say no. But everyone who knows you knows you're a real asshole. A bookshelf hides behind the waist, filled with rolls of text you'll never see. Fancy way to say goodbye. Chicken secrets in the pocket, stealing looks from eyes. I wish I could be that cool. I wish I could not care too. But I do. Phone call away when you want them to be. Can't find a phone when it's you they need. True, you don't have anybody for a dog that just lays and lays and lays. I wish I could be that cool. I wish I could not care too. I wish I could be that cool. I wish I could not care too. But I do.
Thank you for listening, and please join us each and every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern for more Real Talk for Real Teens.